I'm here as a patriot, and I'll not speak about police or oversight. I'll pick from where the professor left, and I think it's quite imperative that, for me, I even questioned why the committee was formed. Let's begin from there. I worked as a member of the reference group, and when we sat down with a committee of experts somewhere in Laikipia and drafted these national values, which you are struggling to remember because the question was asked, patriotism, national unity, and all these values. You know, they look like a shopping basket, but each component means something. The question is, that what does it mean to you? And one thing I want to begin is that all state organs, whether it's National Police Service Commission or the Independent Policing Oversight Authority where I work, or it's any other state organ, whether a ministry, a department, they must interpret the Constitution to give it effect within the context of these values. But let me go back to he reminded me of a paper I wrote in 1997. It was titled Mental Corruption in Kenya. And I serialized the paper on KTN. That time I was a little bit younger. So maybe age has caught up with myself, especially the weight. But there are things which made me wonder where I'm living in. You see a sign, Usikojoe hapa, written by Joe Akech. Then that's why you find somebody standing. You see a sign written Umbwakali. Somebody wants to jump over the fence. Even where, let me say, my father was a very feared man in the village. He not only told me I could write on with paint with a mabati. He told me to write the following words: Umbwakali, lakini usiogope umbwa, ogopa mwenyewe. So, what shocks me after all these processes that we've gone through? We've written the best laws. I think we have written the best laws with the last, and I've met with the Amos Wako as Attorney General before. And there are times we could not agree, let alone even sit on the same table. Because our value system from civil society was totally different from the value system in government. What we wanted in the Constitution, it seems there were people who are behind him. He will tell us later, eventually in his bio, which I'm looking forward to read, who actually was influencing him, because there are value systems which I think are common. That, and I'll challenge him to one. In 2000, I've been in this process for long. In 2001, 2003, and 4 and 5. No, 4. We agreed to set up a Senate because we looked for the interest of the counties. And our history is very clear. I don't know why the lady went to the senator who said this is the first Senate. Wrong. Our value system should be informed of our history. There was a Senate in 1963, 64, 65, and 67. It was demolished by not only the fights you see today, but whatever you see today has been done before. So to the Attorney General, who's Attorney General Emeritus, I want him to answer the question, what happened actually between Nairobi, Kilifi, and back to Nairobi, because the Senate disappeared from the Bomas draft. And I'm saying this because I've worked with my Lord Bishops and Grace's Bishops for those 4 years when trying to draft this constitution. So I said the Senate has disappeared. So, and I said the only person who can be asked that question is I was about to say Archbishop Emeritus. It's Amos Wako Emeritus. So I said if they have any questions to ask, they ask him and not me as the technical advisor. But coming back to what brought me here is to discuss issues which are pertinent, not only to what this report has brought, but to what I think Kenya should move forward to. The first thing which I find in this report, which is very important as we close, we take this home. Because again, this is a country which, Professor Binama is good you've mentioned, we have so many reports, surveys, opinion polls and everything, and then once we leave the seminar, they will go to the office of my friend Elias and they will get stuck there. I hope those students, who are so many, will carry enough copies for their friends. Because I came to realize young people don't read. Nowadays, they just on Facebook and Twitter. So the best thing to do is to put this, I'm a friend of Jesuit Akimani on Facebook. You put this in digestible language for them so that they can tweet about these stories and Facebook each other and we discuss. Because the young people, this is your future, not of those who are living. But let me comment on 4 key issues which I find very pertinent to me in this report. Number 1 is access to information. Article 35 of the Constitution is very clear, crystal clear, that you have the right. But the question here, we have to agree, there must be a freedom of information legislation, and it cannot derogate from that right. But I'll use an example of, again, the man who will speak after me, the Honorable Attorney General. I worked with Kenya Human Rights Commission for 6 years, and you know our history with the Mau Mau. And the case in London, and we've really worked well. And those old men and women somehow have a sense towards justice. But when I used to write and sign off as Deputy Director, Kenya Human Rights Commission, or my boss, Executive Director, to Attorney General to assist us with, as we go along, and he was a very good friend of ours before he left appointive office for elected office. Always when I get back the letter from him, it was either in 2 envelopes and then put the seal and then, pressed. So the question, as we talk about access to information, I was asking myself, and I used this example elsewhere last week, what actually was Mr. Wako telling me? He was just acknowledging the letter. So why spend all these man hours? Because why spend all this? They were man hours. I cannot say woman here. Because the person who put that seal, there is no way angekuwa amekula ugali. But I understand the system. It's my first year in the state as a state officer. But I don't understand, if you want to access information to the public, there are levels of restrictions which come. There is okay, let's begin from the top. Top secret, secret, confidential, and then restricted. So his letters came to me written confidential, but I didn't see anything in confidence there. So as we move forward in this new dispensation of accessing information to the members of the public, and I'm also participating in with my fellow commissioners on drafting this, we want people to access IPOR without those words. We will look for new words maybe. For example, need to know basis, need for access basis. But when you stamp something, in fact, confidential, that's when grapevine starts. So the question is, whereas these are the new ways of dealing with things from the past, how do we navigate ourselves moving forward so that people can access the information they need to exercise their rights? Second, beyond the right to access information, the Constitution is clear I still ask civil society, I ask them upstairs, to continue pushing for the freedom of information legislation. It's not part of the fifth schedule, but it's an important legislation. There was a government one of 206, the civil society of government of 207, civil society of 206. Please push. Because the more things are getting difficult, I've looked at several legislation passed in the last 1 year. There is the Kenya Defence Forces Act. It has those 4 rankings. So I don't know how you'll access. For example, if you want to know how many people were tortured in Kismayu, or those are not people. Yeah. That must be a phone. And then one thing which we have to agree on as a country as we move forward and in this new value system, openness. You know, I need here secretive. Because even those developed countries have this secrecy of information. I don't know, there is an Official Secrets Act, but at least it was revised in 2012, so it's a little bit more lenient towards fulfilling the imperatives of the Constitution, but we still have work to do. So as we go along, the question is, how do we change the bureaucratic setup from a value system of hiding things to releasing things to the public? Because if we say transparency is a value of Article 10, then we must also be transparent. We cannot say that we will give you this, then let me give an example. I want to get information from some institution of the state. I'll not say which one. Then all of a sudden, it's termed secret. And there is nothing secret. If you go to the English definition of the word secret, that thing you're being given is not secret. So why is it getting stamped that way? Moving on, the second area I want to ask, and I saw in the report, is meaningful public participation. I will say this, I went throughout the dioceses of the Catholic Church before and after, and all this process I have taken about 7 years, talking about public participation. Because I get this feeling, and I see it on TV, or I hear it on radio, or see it in the newspapers. Sisi tunaomba serikali. So when we were discussing the draft before the referendum, I asked people, which serikali will you ask? The county government or the national government? Because if you see the scheduled work of the county government versus that of the national government, I don't want to speak like the former president, but there are people who are just lazy. Mimi naomba serikali. Unaomba serikali mpaka ikutafutie mtoto mtoe nursery school, impeleke primary school. You've been told by the meteorological department, it will rain. Then you say, no, you go to some guy under a hat, and he tells you it will not rain. So who do you believe? Science or these other things? This is a value system. If we're becoming scientific, you look at the weatherman or weatherwoman in the morning, tells you to put on your coat and carry your umbrella. Please do so. Now those people are, my friend is not here, the guy who represents the people of Budalangi. They are told like 3 months before, it will flood. And when I was in high school, we visited the meteorological department. Of course, it was then under them. Scientific people are there. You know Francis Ngwata? Yeah. They tell you for certain, it will rain. Then I don't know what we want as a value system country, that we want to go to Sangoma, and who doubts the scientific individual. So if we are entering a culture of science, please let's work together. So that when you're told it will flood near your village, you are told to go to higher ground, please go. Because if you wait there, you start telling us, sisi tunaomba serikali itutafutie watoto, sijui maji imepita wapi. As I come to an end, 5? Oh, thank you. In fact, I need less than 5. But meaningful public participation does not include what I have seen in this country. There are 2 things which are happening in this country. I know all of us are glued to TV screens when they say they want to see who's being appointed who is doing what, parliament vetting process. Nowadays, things are very clear. But do you think you sitting behind your television set, doing crochet, or having your wine or whatever you're having, and saying, I am participating? Because the Public Service Commission asks you, please give us information about this individual. Then you just sit there and do crochet. The other one is watching, does not know which world he belongs to. The heavenly or the secular. Because he's in between. Because there are people who, where I live nowadays, they look like they are in purgatory most of the day. So, how do you participate meaningfully? If you know somebody is a village thief, you go and say so. But when people are asked to give information to the government or appointing bodies, they just sit there. When the person is elected, na niliwaambia. I told you, this person is not a good man. But you never said so. Now you've wasted our public millions trying to recruit a person who we know for sure was not good for the job. The second area I want to ask is the mentioned barazas. Barazas have been used in this country to extract information from the public and to speak down. You know, not this is down up. I would say bottom up. And this other one is top down. Baraza's chief, if he speaks, you cannot ask questions. You know, it's like those 12 minutes of the sermon. You hear and go home. So, in old times, and they have been used, and the politicians who are present here know, that when a DC is speaking, and some woman who sells cabbages in the local market, they cannot be at equal footing. So the question is, how do we devise a new system of public, because everybody is public, between the leaders and the followers, to speak at equal footing? My mother will not go to a barasa. You've seen Pauline and the other lady was called who? Priscilla. They will not go. They just is a waste of time. Don't take those people for granted. They are saying the truth. You'd rather go and plow your cabbages and take them to the market instead of coming to be lectured down by a DC who's saying, until you tell me who stole, you're not leaving this baraza. So let's devise a way. I know we have bright legal minds here, professors from law, and I'm a political scientist by training. There are many other professions, including even civil engineers seated here. You don't know them. So let's devise a way structurally of how we can have this dialogue. Second last point. Opportunity for national integration is contained in this report. But the question here is the elephant in the room. Throughout my life, grew up in Eastlands, studied it with everyone. The only people I met later were people like the Tugans. Not because they are special, but because they were not near where I went to school. In Nairobi, or some El Molo, or the Yak, who I meet when I go to Kilifi or Malindi to visit my Lord Bishop. I will meet them. But naturally, I grew up knowing I'm a Kenyan. Not because I was taught, or I was lectured by a commission of national integration, but because you grow up with a new moral and value system that this is a human being, number one, beyond anything else. Hakuna kitu ya kuzungumza. But here you have parents, and they are here. They tell you, those people from the lake, they will eat you. Now, what kind of values are you giving to that boy or girl? National integration it's not the responsibility of a National Cohesion Integration Commission. In fact, it should be disbanded. It has been my opinion for the last 2 years. What we need is parents to install and instill values to their children. That if you see a Muslim and you have come from church, you say hello. Not say that those who are wearing strange clothes. Yours are not strange, wearing a tie and the sun is up there. So let's agree. And And before I leave this seat, although I'm standing, this is a particular message to the young people behind there. Facebook and social media. The kind of vile I see on those pages. After Obama gave his speech about the 50th anniversary of the Lincoln Memorial meeting, I put it there as a YouTube thing, and I said, no comments. Because the morning before, there were people here who were young people. Now I'm looking back. When Obama's name is mentioned, they say, that Kamujaluo. Don't say, you are the people. Great leaders are known by how they lead their countries forward. But here we have Facebook followers who are so, I don't know which word to describe. I grew up in Islam, so I don't know a lot of English. But if I was to say in Sheng, then you find the other side. Whenever the president says anything, there is this other side. You know, they have like, you know, see no evil, hear no evil, say nothing good, people. They just blast. And this is in all public positions, whether in America or in Kenya, in comments which are genuine comments that this person, I think, stole from the public. Then all of a sudden you see somebody who is, I can't even estimate their age. Because first, they don't know how to write English. They have this Facebook language which you will tell this person 24 and below. So the question is, if you are trying to nationally integrate, and you young people are not doing so, pouring vile and acid on each other. So which country are we trying to build? My final point. You think about it, young people. I'm not looking at this front table or here. You are taught well because your parents are this age here. I cannot pour the things you pour there. Defense of human rights is my last point, my pet subject. As we begin this new constitution, we have begun, but people do not still understand that rights comes with responsibilities. But equally, we have again to plow back and ask again, what rights do we have? And what responsibilities do we have? There is an article on citizenship. Professor mentioned so much about being a citizen. But let's first begin with rights. And then I'll sit down for you to ask yourself, what kind of citizen do you want to become? When we find that, and I'm not that old, but I'm not that young. I was taught, let me say, good manners. That when a victim of a human rights violation, a violation has occurred, it is my duty as a citizen to ensure that person gets justice. When I hear all these stories, and I will be very political because I came here as a patriot, that there are cases ongoing, both here and abroad. And people seem to play victim, and yet the real victims are intense. Women were raped. So many people tortured. And then you tell me to forget that. In the name of my community. We will not speak one language. Because where I came from, there were bullies. Queen's High School. They were bullies. At least I was not bullied for two reasons. One, I had a bigger brother when I joined. But beyond that, I entered Form 1 and became part of the school team, not football team. So if you bully me, I'll not play. Then there are no goals. No, it was simple. So the question for me here is, as I sit down, let us not re-victimize those people who suffered by unleashing all manner of demons in terms of protecting our own. We have to always speak for what is right. Having worked under the tutelage of these senior bishops, I learned only one thing. Peace, which we so much seek, is only a fruit of truth and justice. There cannot be a shortcut.